Ah, greetings, B-movie aficionados.
Hello, welcome to A Couple of Flicks. I am Tristan.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Zach.
And this has been a busy 2024, I think the year is, right? I don't even know what's been going on this year. So I've been oblivious. I got booted off of social media, so I don't know what people are bitching and arguing about these days. So
Everything.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I should start off by saying that I missed you both very much. So
Man, we're all back. Yeah, all three of us are back together. Hell yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we finally found something weird and interesting enough to sort of actually sit down and take the time to talk about. So, it's hard because it's been a busy year, but once we get to it, we can get going pretty well. So
Yeah.
we'll see if we can keep up the momentum, but if not, no big deal. So. One of the cool things about this podcast is that I kind of feel okay to sort of use my own time toward it, so
Yeah.
it's
fun to do.
It is. But I guess before we talk about this movie, I guess I guess we should all talk about movies we've watched this year, whether they be new movies or old movies or whatever. Like, have you guys watched anything in the past few months that you want to chat about or mention or share your thoughts on?
I haven't actually watched many things this year. It's like the least amount I've watched in a long time. But the last thing worth mentioning, I think, is Monkey Man, Dev Patel movie.
Oh, I want to see that.
Was it good?
Yeah, it's pretty enjoyable. Not as good as I thought it was going to be, but still good.
Huh. Yeah, I do want to watch that one.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. I love the premise, and I like the acting or the actors in it. So
yeah, I think I was just expecting more like John Wick type shit.
Yeah,
Like
that's what I heard it was.
They even like name drop John Wick, but it wasn't to that level. But still good.
Speaking of John Wick, a movie that I rewatched a couple months ago with a couple of friends was, and I only mentioned John Wick because this movie got compared to it for some reason, but Pig, the Nicolas Cage movie.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. I
love that movie.
Yeah, I fell in love with it. I watched it with a couple of other friends, and we all ended up crying at the end of it. Like, it was really interesting, actually. I really loved it. Like, upon rewatch, like the first time I watched it, I liked it, but I was a little bit confused by it. But the second time, it hit the right. I don't know. It hit me in the right spot. It's hard to explain.
I loved it the first time I watched it. It was my favorite movie of whatever year it released, and I cried several times through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we did our lists that year. It was top on both of ours.
Yeah, it was so good. I cried even during that scene where he was talking, like he went to that restaurant with the guy and he was like telling him all the stuff he remembered. Like, how's that pub above the bar? That's what you wanted to do. And just that like side actor guy was like, he was focusing on his face and you could see like he was breaking down. like when Nicolas Cage like put his thumb in that little I don't know egg dish and he was just giving him shit like, this isn't what you wanted. Why don't you go make that pub with the hotel above it and serve pub fries? And I cried during that, and then of course cried during like the final dish scene. It was such a good movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it a lot. Like, especially the side character. The first time I watched it, I didn't know who anybody was, and like all these people were getting introduced, and it felt like people I should have already known or something like that. And then like the second time I watched it, I kind of realized like, no, wait, I don't need to know them because he already does. Like, why do I feel? Well, sometimes I get like so invested in a movie that I forget like about what I'm supposed to know and what I'm not supposed to know. And I think we've all had those kinds of experiences before. Where we're watching a movie with somebody and then they randomly ask in the middle, like, wait, what's going on? And then you have to kind of pause it and explain what's going on, and it's a little bit frustrating. But, yeah. And Pig, it felt like the type of movie where if somebody had been watching it with me, I probably, like, at the time that I was watching it, like, it probably would have been more helpful. But I don't know, like, watching it with other people kind of makes it more interesting in certain ways, because other people respond to it very differently at different points, and I don't know, I really admire it in a lot of ways. I think it's one of the best movies of the decade, probably. So
I'd agree.
Yeah. By the way, Zach, I forgot to say welcome back. I apologize. I know that you were on hiatus, and whenever you want to if you want to keep on the train, or take time off or whatever, and same with you, Nick, and same with myself, I think we can all invite ourselves. If you guys ever have a certain movie that both of you have seen that you want to chat with each other about, you're welcome to. And I'm all for anything. And if either of you guys want special guests, I'm cool with that too. So
all right.
But yeah, Zach, was there anything else you saw, Zach, aside from that, like anything older or newer?
Pig made me think of I don't know if either of you watched The Bear, but just started third season.
Yeah, I'm on like I watched the first 4 episodes ish now.
I think I'm on 3. But yeah.
Hell yeah, that's good shit.
I want to see that. Yeah. I haven't watched it yet.
Have you seen any of it?
Not yet.
Okay.
2 people have recommended it to me, so it's good to know that you guys are watching it too, because that inspires me to watch it. So
yeah, it's one of the best TV shows out in, I don't know, a long time. Like, I think it's comparable to like high prestige television, Sopranos, fucking The Wire, Breaking Bad. It's real good.
So good.
The Wire that had a big effect on me. That kind of changed my whole like idea of what television could even be. Yeah. And then Breaking Bad, like, that really blew me away too. So Sopranos I liked, but it also sort of frustrated me too, only because it reminded me so much of people I know. But I still liked it though. But yeah, The Wire, that might be my favorite show that's ever been on HBO. Like,
oh yeah, mine. It's definitely mine. Yeah.
I don't know. Does Twin Peaks count? I mean, anyway. What about you, Nick? Have you watched anything?
I mean, I think a few things. I watched the Oscars and then watched like immediately after watched Pretty Things.
Oh, Poor Things or Pretty
Things? Poor Things. Yeah.
Oh, good. Poor Things. All right.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on that one?
I was like, what the fuck am I watching? How is it? Like, I definitely thought like just the visuals were amazing. Like, the costumes are great, but like the story was like out there. Like, what the fuck? This got like, I mean, I liked it, but was surprised by how out there and hard they went on shit, and it still got all those Oscar noms. Like, okay, you're all right. That's interesting.
Right. It would have been like if Midsummer got nominated for Best Picture or something like
that. Yeah.
Like Midsummer, like, bar none, is probably one of the most like fucked up movies I've ever seen in my whole life. Even now, I'm still sort of trying to like understand and process it, because it really grossed me out. But if that movie had gotten nominated for Best Picture, that would have blown my mind. And admittedly, watching Poor Things, there were at least a couple moments where my brain sort of short-circuited, so to speak.
Yeah. I was like, what the fuck am
Yeah.
I watching here? I don't
Yeah.
even know. Holy
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah, that's not the first time that's happened with me with a Yorgos Lanthimos film. Like he makes movies about like incest and shit. So and
I mean,
there's
this
been a
was kind of close,
yeah.
right? They except I don't know what the fuck Emma Stone was still. Like it's like some
Yeah,
sort of
it's because
clone.
she's kind of a baby, but she's kind of not. Like it's like I don't. It's getting into territory that's so complicated that you have to sort of at a certain point you have to just turn your brain off and just go with it
Yeah, I
because
figured that out
yeah
once that she
yeah
like there was just like offerings of blowjobs right in the first 5 minutes when she was still talking like a baby. I was like, all
yeah
right,
yeah.
let's all right.
I mean, with a movie like this, you really have to sort of be patient with it and sort of let because usually there is some sort of underlying point to it,
Mhm.
but sometimes it takes a while to really get there. And this was definitely a movie where like you kind of had to wait till the end of the movie for it to sort of all make perfect sense.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, but I do admire that movie and I did enjoy it very much. I've liked pretty much every movie he's made. The only one I was a little frustrated with was The Lobster. Like I thought it was hilarious, but the music was really repetitive and that sort of got on my nerves after a while. Like that started to take me out of the movie because it kept on using like the same theme again and again. I don't know if anybody else had the same problem that I did with it. Like maybe everybody else was involved enough in it, but that really just I don't know. That made it a little bit harder for me to get into. But that's the only movie of his I've had a problem with though is The Lobster. So
Uh I didn't see that. I saw the killing of a sacred deer. I like that a lot, but yeah, I didn't.
that was
Yeah,
a
I think
cool one.
that's the only other one I've seen too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Dogtooth is really good. The Favorite is really good. Poor Things might be my favorite one. I don't know. All of his stuff is pretty weird. So
Mhm.
I haven't really. Well, I've heard about his new one, The Kinds of Kindness. I know it's getting pretty notorious already, but I haven't sat down and
Yeah.
really taken the time to even read about that one. So I don't think I will. I like to go into his movies blind. I like to swan dive into them. So
Hmm. I watched Fallout, the series. That was fun. It was actually more better than I thought. I don't like the games at all. I don't like Bethesda games, but the show is good. Um,
okay, that's good to know.
and
Didn't
then
Uwe Boll make a movie about out of oh no, that's Far Cry. Never mind, I'm getting them confused. Fallout. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring up Uwe Boll.
I mean, he's the
Whoops.
biggest video game I mean, at least I guess numbers wise, probably
Yeah.
made the most.
Yeah, he holds the records. But be careful about what you say about his movies because he
Right.
might beat you up, you know?
Might end up in a boxing ring with him.
Yeah, yeah. Put up your dukes if you start criticizing Uwe Boll.
Uh-huh. And then Challengers I've seen it twice in theaters because I was an extra in it and it's one of my more prominent roles you can see me in actually. So yeah.
That's excellent.
And it was a good movie. It was a straight up just good movie because I also like tennis, so I'm a little biased on that. But like there was some great cinematography and interesting choices made with that, and it's a love triangle-ish movie, but it's also like very homoerotic. Like it's like three tennis prodigies, two dudes kind of vying for Zendaya. And it spans like 10-ish years and they go back and forth with who's with her, but it's about the dudes, the bromance and the dudes, and it's all about that shit. And like the final tennis scene was just immaculate. Like it was so cool. Like you could like it's hard. A lot of people don't like tennis because they say it's boring because it's just them hitting it back and forth. But I love tennis, and it's funny because some of the scenes where you just watch the audience going like whack, and then you just watch them head bobbing back and forth. But the last scene was like so cool. They had some really awesome shots I heard like the writer was inspired by some of those like sports animes. where it was just, over exaggerated, over the top, just like there were scenes of them just pouring sweat and just like doing crazy shit, and then like the final like little scene of them playing together was just like exactly like right out of a tennis anime, and it was so cool.
Yeah. No, dude, you said a mouthful. I think Challengers is one of the best movies of the year, if not the best, at least so far.
Yeah.
I loved it. This is my Whiplash. Like, to me, this movie appeals much more to my interests, and I think it's one of Guadagnino's best movies. Like, I think his movies get better and better. Like, his first few movies, like, I enjoyed them all, but I had some problems with them. But then, like, Suspiria, I really enjoyed because it was.
I didn't watch that yet. Because I didn't even know he was the one that made that. I didn't know that it was his. Yeah, I wanted to see it, but now that I knew he made it, I did want to see it even more. Yeah.
Suspiria, it's one of the best remakes. It's just fucked up women doing fucked up shit in Berlin during a very political time where the Berlin Wall is kind of on its way out, so to speak. And there's so much insane, like, it's about a Mennonite lady who's repressed, and oh my God, you got to see it. Tilda Swinton, like, she plays a dual role and she's incredible in both of them. Like, I just absolutely love that movie. And then what was that movie? Flesh and Blood, or Flesh and Bone, or Bones and Flesh, or Bones and All. That movie.
Bones and All, yeah.
It's about cannibalism. It's perfect. It's like the best movie about cannibalism. It's almost as good as like that German Marianne Dora movie, Cannibal. It's not as good as that, but like as far as movies about cannibalism go, like it's definitely up there. It's like Badlands meets Brain Dead or some kind of movie like that. It's just nuts, but that was even better than Suspiria. And The Challengers, like, I think this is my favorite Guadagnino movie.
I loved it. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I want to rewatch it, like, not just because I like it, but also because I want to see if I can spot you. Because I didn't even I forgot that you were an extra in it. I didn't even think about that when I was watching it. I was like, oh yeah, like Luca Guadagnino making a sports movie. Like, I have to watch that.
He gave me a thumbs up too. He's like, well, he was coming through, and like, because it was during that scene where it's pretty early on, first 15-20 minutes. It's when there's like a Adidas award and Zendaya's getting the award and stuff, and it's just a dance scene, but like she's dancing, you can just see me dancing behind her.
Nice. That's great.
And it's funny too because it's like they shoot it, there's no actual music being played, so we're just dancing to no music and shit. Man.
Oh, nice. Excellent. Yeah, no, I remember that part. I'll have to. Yeah, I'll keep an eye out next time I rewatch it. I don't know. I might convince my sister to watch it. It's hard to say. I don't know. I like movies about three-way relationships. I know that sounds weird, but something about that idea, like that. What was that movie? Itu Mama También? I love that movie. Yeah. Yeah. Like this movie was like almost. It felt like the modern sort of version of that in a weird way. Well, no, I wouldn't go that far actually, because that's more about death and things. I highly recommend that movie, by the way, if you haven't watched it yet. But yeah, that's different subject matter. Anyway, but was there anything? So was there anything else you wanted to say, or?
No, not about covers. It's a great movie. I loved it. Even bias set aside that I'm in it. Yeah, it was still real good.
Yeah. Well, knowing that you're in it, that makes me love it even more than I already did. I mean, I remembered once I started talking to you that you were in it. I remember you mentioned that, but I just, for whatever reason, I forgot. Just because there's been a lot going on this year, and I usually watch all of his movies anyway. So
he's great.
Yeah, he's really cool. So I guess as far as movies I've watched, like the big one. And I actually sort of thought about not bringing this one up because it's kind of controversial, but I whatever, I'll just bring it up anyway. Civil War. I watched that movie.
I wanted to see it, but then I heard it wasn't like good.
Yeah. Well, wait, Zach, have you seen it? Or...
I haven't, no.
Okay. I I think my ultimate problem is that I've seen too many movies. Like I've seen too many war movies, and I was disappointed with it personally, but not because it was badly made. Like the sound design was like top notch. But if you've seen movies like A Midnight Clear or Come and See or The Ascent or things like that, like I don't know, have either of you seen any of those movies? Or
I've seen Come and See.
I think I've seen The Ascent.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah. So both of those, well, all right. So if you've seen both of those movies, then you've kind of already seen the best parts of this movie. Like I'd say the best part of Civil War is the soundtrack and the sound design. And it's obviously well made. Like Alex Garland, I don't know how I feel about him as a filmmaker at this point, because I really liked Ex Machina.
Ex Machina is so good, yeah, and I agree. Like his movies just kept getting worse. Like,
yeah.
So it's like, it's disappointing. He made a banger and then
he's starting to become like the new M. Night Shyamalan almost.
Yeah.
It's weird because he wrote like The Beach. Well, he wrote the novel To the Beach. I don't know about the movie, but he wrote 28 Days Later, and I think he wrote Sunshine, which is a movie I had, which I would have loved if the characters hadn't been so stupid, but I still loved it in a weird way. I loved how well made it was. He like his movies are all well made, but they mostly just annoy me. Like Men, I fucking hated. Like there came a certain point where I kind of just wanted the movie to just be over, and I wanted to just leave the theater. And it seemed like everybody that I saw it that was in the theater with it, like they all hated it too. Like it just, I hated that movie. And then Annihilation, the ending, like I liked the ending, but there were things about that annoyed me. And with Civil War, like the Jesse Plemons scene is by far the best scene.
That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
It's just that scene because he's always badass and creepy and fucked up.
Jesse Plemons. Yeah, I mean it's absolutely one of his most memorable characters. Like it's definitely like the highlight of the movie. It's the most suspenseful scene. It's the most disturbing scene. It's the one that says the most. Like overall, it's the most interesting scene in the movie, and then they ruin it because it ends like in a really cheesy, predictable way that I've seen a million times before. That it pissed me off, and then the rest of the movie kind of just I really, the biggest problem I have with the movie is that I really couldn't stand the characters. Like, I thought that they were just the most annoying kinds of people. Kirsten Dunst, like, there was some mystery to her character, but like, there was never any point where the film even bothered to try to sort of explore her psychology. Like, I think what the movie's trying to do is it's trying to sort of position the side of the journalists in like the same position as people who are involved in a war and in a conflict and stuff. But the problem with that is that when you have characters whose motivations are just like pretty much, oh, this is just my job, like it makes it really hard to get involved because they can just wander from atrocity to atrocity, just looking at what they're seeing and have no opinion about it. And you don't know if they like what they're seeing or if they don't like what they see. Like you can tell that a couple characters have really, really like strong visceral reactions to it, but then that brings into question, like, why are they even involved? And I feel like a movie with this kind of subject matter needs a deeper exploration, and it shouldn't be in the form of like a big screen IMAX movie. Like that doesn't really make sense to me either, because the movie only has like, it doesn't even have like 3 action scenes in it. It only has it like the whole act, like the trailer annoys the crap out of me because it makes it look like an action movie, but it's really not. It's just about people going from location to location, basically just filming atrocities. And some of those atrocities involve people in conflict and some of them don't. The president character is there, he's just shrouded in ambiguity. I actually like the way the movie ends because it sort of makes the whole theme of the movie come full circle, because you already are questioning the morality of the characters, and the ending sort of solidifies the things that we're sort of questioning. And so the ending does provide a lot of answers, but we still don't really, it seems like all the animosity toward him more or less only comes from the fact that he's allowed himself a third term. which is actually something that I can see happening. Like, if you want to speak politically, like I do have certain feelings about the way people feel about tradition and stuff that would sort of encourage like a mob mentality like that. But the way this movie handles it is sort of murky. Like, that's why I like the Jesse Plemons character, I think, because I feel like that's the most interesting character to follow in the middle of a story like this, is somebody who uses this as an opportunity to hurt people and to sort of play into their sick impulses. Like, there's a lot more that can be said about that, as far as like how people view news and why people view news and stuff. This movie could have like aimed really high, but instead it only kind of cracked the surface. And that's why I'm disappointed in it, because Alex Garland, like, it's clear what his opinions are, but he sort of clouds it in sort of this celebratory faction of look at how noble these people are doing for exploring the truth and depicting the truth, and not really choosing a side until the end. It's like, I don't know, that I feel like there's a better way to tell a story like this. So those are my overall thoughts on Civil War. I guess I'd recommend it because it's well made, but I didn't really see what the big deal was. Those, you know. So I think New Order said a lot more daring things, than this one did. I think the Mexican movie, I think that movie was a little bit more daring than this one. Anyway, what were you about to say, Zach? Sorry.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. It's worth seeing, I guess, is what I would say. So, but it pissed me off. Anyway, yeah. So I guess we should just dive into this one now, because we've taken a while getting to this. But the movie that the main sort of movie we're talking about on this episode is a movie that I watched a few days ago, actually, called the title's annoying. I Saw the TV Glow. I keep wanting to call it I Saw the Glowing of the Television, but it's I Saw the TV Glow. So.
Yeah.
The reason I chose this movie to talk about is because I didn't really know how to feel about it, truthfully. After I watched it, I sort of felt I sort of loved what it was going for the first hour or so, and then it kind of lost me as it went along, and now I'm just sort of, and I need some, I guess I'm using this as my therapy hour. I need somebody to talk about this movie with, So,
yeah, I hear what you mean too. I was like interested. I mean, I mean, overall, it was kind of like slow and in an all right way. Like, there's just a lot of just like contemplative shots of the two main characters living in shitty like childhoods with poor parental situations, but a lot of it was just real slow of them, just like a lot of decently long shots of them just looking and sad and morose. It was just like it was still a short-ish movie, like an hour 40, hour 30, but not a lot really happens in it overall. This is cool visuals and stuff in general. Like, it was well shot and looked nice, but like, I don't know, the whole plot didn't really, I don't know what the actual plot was.
Well, we can definitely get into it, because I'm really frustrated with myself. I really am, because I actually wanted to watch this movie a second time, but I didn't. I didn't have time. I got distracted by life, and my goal was to watch it today, and I was really like focused on it, and then I had to work, and which is fine, but then I ended up having to work later, and then there was this concert, and I just didn't get around to it, and so. But my memory of it is a little bit foggy, but I think I can recall most of it. So I'm gonna really try hard to sort of try. I guess I'm gonna try to explain why this movie like annoys me, but also why I appreciate it.
Okay.
But it's gonna be a little bit tricky.
Yeah, I watched it today and finished it like around 7:30. So it's pretty fresh in my mind. So
okay, good. That's good to hear. And Zach, did you watched it?
Yeah, I watched it yesterday.
Okay. And I guess my question is how how did you feel about it when it was over, and how do you feel about it now?
I still don't know.
Okay, good.
This is one of those, like, I enjoyed it, but I don't know how I feel about it.
All right. Excellent.
There were definitely things I appreciated for sure. But like still, yeah, overall, I'm like, what? I don't know what really happened or what the point of this movie really was trying to convey.
Yeah. Well, okay. I guess I should start with the director, because this is somebody who's familiar with me. And so the director is somebody named Jane Schoenberg, who I guess they're non-binary or transgender. I'm not sure exactly. I should have done my research, but I saw their first movie, Let's Go to the World. Okay, I guess the biggest issue I have with them so far is their titles they don't roll off the tongue. The first movie they made was something about the World's Fair.
We're all going to the World's Fair.
Okay, yeah, we're all going to the World's Fair. I love that movie. I thought it was incredible. I thought that was like one of the best movies of the year when it came out. And I love that movie for a number of different reasons. I loved it because it was very minimalist, but it was saying a lot of different things. It asked a lot of really challenging questions, and you both know how much I love complicated, weird movies. And the filmmaking style of it was unique because it was mostly just one person in a room, just by themselves doing stuff, or outside, or just the whole movie was just mostly one person in a room, talking to themselves or doing whatever, or talking to somebody online. And I just like movies that really strip down the cast and just let the emotions and the feelings and the characterization sort of speak for themselves. And so that's what I really loved about that movie. And a lot of people, I guess, were annoyed by it because not much happens in it, but I liked what it was saying, and I liked what it was exploring. This movie, I guess I should start by talking about what I liked about it, which I think the visuals and the soundtrack are, of course, like memorable, and distinct enough, I would say, as far as like it being like a movie that stands out. Like there's a lot of different, like, unusual color schemes and stuff like that. So, and I'm gathering that this movie is supposed to be kind of like a response to the wave of nostalgia and like nostalgic themed sort of movies and TV shows and stuff that we've sort of been watching for the last 10 years, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the things I did like about it too, because I'm a huge Buffy fan.
Yeah.
And the central theme is they're watching a show called The Pink Opaque, and it's absolutely like a 90s Buffy ripoff or side tangent, like a couple other themes thrown in there, but like absolutely it's a Buffy fucking show. Like you see like them watching it at first, and there's like a scene of the show and it's showing like the credits. Literally the credits are the exact same font that Buffy uses for their opening credits, like when director, it's the legit same font. And they even have a Buffy character, like in the show there's a character in the Pink Opaque, there's a character called Tara, and in Buffy there's a character called Tara, and she makes a guest appearance as the boy's mom that the main character was lying about going to sleepovers with. Like he comes to her house because he's scared, and he's like, I don't, please tell my dad to ground me. And that like that mom is in Buffy, she plays a character called Tara. And so I was like, oh sweet. So I love the Buffy references and shit. And it's like, and it's the show, The Pink Opaque, that they're doing is like a show on something that like the same network Buffy aired on, like a young adult network. And it's where Buffy kind of aired. I think it aired on Fox as well, maybe, but also it did a lot of CW. Like I think Angel aired on the CW end, and it was a horror kind of aimed
like
at
supernatural quasi.
Then they even said like key phrase is kind of that like Buffy pioneered like monster of the week. I think that was kind of a X-Files thing, but the big bad they mentioned a lot, and that's something that Buffy definitely like was something that the Buffyverse kind of coined, is the big bad term.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there were a few other little Easter eggs. Well, no, I guess that's the wrong word, but sort of, I guess, winks, kind of like not only in the show itself, but also with some of the actors they chose. Because like I noticed that the well, actually, I shouldn't say I noticed, because I didn't notice it. I didn't know this until after I looked the movie up. But the two brothers who play Pete and Pete are in this, and the show that they watched actually did kind of remind me of Pete and Pete a little bit, mainly the whole ice cream face thing. So, but
Dude, that reminded me a little bit of Power Rangers.
yeah, the melty face thing. Yeah,
They just did a good job of like a lot of 90s shows
Yeah,
like
yeah.
mixed into one.
I read what someone from Limp Bizkit was in it too. Like,
yeah, Fred Durst, he played the
Yeah.
dad.
just straight up. Oh, that he played the dad. Shit. Okay.
Yeah, we all love Fred Durst.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in this movie and he played the dad, and yeah, he got to stretch his acting skills a little bit. You know, he got to say the big line, you know, ain't that a show for girls? Like while he's driving.
Exactly, just like what
like,
people thought Buffy was. Yeah. Like,
yeah. Oh my God, I loved it. Yeah, it was I enjoyed seeing him pop up, you know. And I think I don't know, like the I'd say overall, like I thought I liked what the actors were doing with this in this movie. Like they all kind of were pretty low key and weird, and I'm sure like the average person, if they watched this movie, they'd be like, oh, these people suck. But I don't know, for me, like I know so many people who talk just like these characters that like that aspect of it actually worked for me. So
yeah. What I thought was weird was the main character, Justice Smith. I liked him in Detective Pikachu and
oh yeah, I forgot he did
and
that.
Dungeons and Dragons, but his voice in this was just weird. I don't remember his voice. Like felt like he was straining his voice to make it sound lower, and like I don't know, it was just weird. Like
Yeah, he
choice he made with that.
yeah, he constantly felt out of breath. I don't know if they were trying to like say something about his asthma or
I think
something.
it was. I think it had to do with like the whole like spoiler-ish in this, but like the whole subplot-ish of them being buried alive. I think that's kind of what they were going for with the asthma and him being like out of breath a lot and like
suffocating.
Yeah. That was my guess by the end of the movie, yeah.
Yeah, there were that definitely, because it was like either he's suffocating on the outside or he's suffocating on the inside, but like either way he's doomed to suffocate, seems like. I mean, assuming, well, okay, we'll get into it, but like I guess the thing that pisses me off the most about this movie is the ending. That's really where the movie lost me. But getting to that, I mean, the movie starts off, you got this kid who's he played by? Well, he doesn't start off being played by him. He starts off being played by like the 7th grade version of himself. But of course, this isn't a memory. Okay, so that was a weird.
Yeah, that was a weird thing too for me that caught me off guard. Is like, yeah, it was a kid that looked real young, and that it started off with him going to this Maddie, the other main character, Maddie, to watch this show. And then there was just a 2-year time skip, and it was then Justice Smith. And I was like, what the fuck? Puberty hit this kid hard. Because he looked real young. And then it looked like, Justice Smith is like in his mid-20s or like. It was like, you couldn't get another person to play someone a little bit older between him and Justice Smith.
I mean, well, okay, so here's the thing. All right, so at the beginning of the movie, the first time you see the character, it's Justice. Wait, is it Justice Smith or Justin Smith?
Justice, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
the first time. Okay, the first time you see the character, it's Justice Smith sitting at the campfire.
He did. Are you afraid of the dark?
Yeah.
Dropped the dust.
Yeah, the movie starts off with him at the campfire having a remembrance, and so
Yeah.
I think the kid that you see at the beginning of the movie, the tween version of himself, I think is supposed to be how he remembers himself, rather than, because that whole first part of the movie is just his memory, if I'm not mistaken. So I think the reason he's played by a younger actor at the beginning of the movie is because the main character distinctly remembers a time when he didn't think the way he does now. Like there came a point where he changed. And so the first part of the movie, which is, incidentally my favorite part of the movie, follows this kid who he's pretty introverted. He's pretty shy. He doesn't seem to be all that socially with it. And he starts kind of having this sort of semi relationship with this girl who's a couple of years older than him, who's obsessed with the show. What's it called again? The pink opaque. Yeah, she's obsessed with this show, and she's reading this book. It's like this episode guide type of thing, which like people used to publish back when people read books. The episode guide. I don't know if people still do that, but
they just
one of them,
use socials, Reddit, IMDb's
pretty much
now.
Yeah, and I'm one of them old folks who grew up in the 90s and remembers the days of episode guides and episode books and stores. And I remember going to the convenience store and seeing episode guides for Buffy and like for Simpsons and for all these other things just right there on the rack. Like those things existed. Of course, mostly when you see them nowadays, they're for soap operas, but
It's because they need a whole goddamn dictionary for those.
Oh yeah, soap operas are too complicated to follow.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he starts talking to this girl, and she's reading the episode guide for the Pink Opaque, and of course she's saying, "Oh, but the themes in this movie are so much more complicated and crazy, and it's not a kids show. Trust me, it's on the Kids Network. It's on the Young Adult Network, but trust me, it's not a kids show."
No,
And
it's like just like Buffy.
yeah.
That's kind of what
Yeah.
the thought was with that. It's like, yeah, it is on the kids-ish network,
Yeah,
but it is definitely, there are creepy fucking episodes that scare the shit out of me still to this day. And like, it's not really a kid's show, and it's not really a girl show either. So it's like,
not really. Yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it was a lot like that actually. Yeah, it was pretty much just all about the right on the edge, like of being appropriate, non-appropriate. It's like, well, I guess that if your kid's watching a lesbian kiss for more than 2 seconds, it's all right. But any more than like 5 seconds, that's not okay, or whatever the TV rules are. Like, it's so arbitrary. Whatever. Anyway, but this movie. So he's interested in this Pink Opaque show because he's watched the previews for it on the TV. But I guess at this point in his memory, he hasn't watched it yet.
Yeah, no, because his bedtime is before it airs.
Yeah. That's right. So he's talking to his mom. It's like, hey, yo, mom, could I go to, I don't remember his friend's name, Johnny 2x4.
Johnny Lynx.
Johnny Lynx. Could I go to Johnny Lynx's house for a sleepover? And she's like, well, you'll have to talk to my dad. Well, could you talk to him for me? So now there's this theme of him being afraid of his dad. He doesn't want to say anything to his dad directly. So that's sort of, so as soon as that part got brought up, I was like, okay, this is going to be a complicated movie, because what's more complicated than daddy issues, especially in a movie like this, which is already about like TV. I'm like, oh no.
And both characters had daddy issues too. That's one thing we could relate on.
Yeah. And of course he goes to Johnny Lynx. He goes to Johnny Lynx's house and goes up to the doorbell and pretends that he's gonna ring it, and his mom is kind of looking behind him. And it's like, oh, did you bring your inhaler, baby girl or baby boy? And he's like, yeah, it's in my bag. Whatever, kids that age say. I'm just, improvising, but because I don't remember. It's been a few days since I watched this movie. I apologize, but I remember the mom being kind of not babying, but a little bit demeaning, like just kind of maybe prodding a little bit too much. Like doesn't at one point she says something about like, oh, you don't talk to me anymore or something, like I forget exactly, but anyway, so like he's at the door and then like she leaves, and so he flees over to the the pink opaque girl. What's her name again? Maddie.
Yeah.
Maddie. Okay, cool.
And her actor doesn't change at all either. She's the same actor throughout.
Yes. Yeah, she stays the same. Her hair changes.
Yeah.
Her hair changes a lot.
Quite often, yeah.
Yeah. It's the scariest thing in the world. The second haircut. Oh my God. Right. I'm not gonna even talk about that. But anyway, so he goes over to the house, and she's with this other girl who is like, you can tell they're both trying to bond with each other. They're trying to relate. Like, I think they're talking about, like, I think they're playing that game MASH, where they're trying to make lists of different people that they're going to marry, and then it's like a randomizer, and so they're naming random kids in school, and then like Michael Stipe, and Maddie, of course, is like, oh, I like Michael Stipe, and so it's very clear at this point that the movie takes place in the 90s. I think at one point they're even voting for Bill Clinton, right?
Yeah, it's there's in the when they're kids, it does pop up 1996 is when they're when he's in the 7th grade and shit, at least. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and it lines up with the Buffy timeline that aired. It aired in 97, started airing in 97 at least. So.
Okay. Yeah, and at the beginning of the movie, they vote, and she's like, vote for the saxophone man, which of course is Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
And it's like this random thing that I guess puts you in 1996. It's a very specific year because a lot of things happened that year. But anyway, so he watches this episode of The Pink Opaque, which is the one with the ice cream man. And Zach, you said it reminded you of the Power Rangers.
Yeah, like a villain from Power Rangers for sure.
Mm-hmm. The latex face definitely reminded me of Ivan Ooze.
Yeah, and it was melting and shit.
Yeah,
nice.
I loved it. By the way, I know this is kind of a tangent, but I haven't watched that Power Rangers movie in a long time. I'm kind of curious how well it's aged. Have you watched it recently, or?
Recently, no.
Okay. All right. I don't know. I'm kind of curious to rewatch it. But anyway, all right. Going back to the movie, the TV glow. I saw the TV glow is what it's called. So let's see. Okay, so they watched the episode of the ice cream guy on television, and then he ends up sleeping over. But she says something about her stepdad, about how he's going to break her nose if he catches another boy in her house. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that kind of tells you everything that needs to be said about her situation. And I guess in a way that also sort of explains why she does what she does throughout the rest of the movie, now that I think about it. You see, I'm still processing this movie now that I'm talking about it. That's why it's helpful to sort of talk about it with you guys. So
yeah, it's definitely the show is definitely like an escape for her. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So the show is like the ultimate escape for her, to the point where she pretty much devotes herself to it.
Yeah, and like it says, like, because there's a scene where, like, I mean, after that it is basically like there's a 2 year later scene, and it's explaining that she's been, like, since I can't stay up, she has been recording and sending me tapes, and there's just like him just walking through the halls with like just a bunch of on-screen writing of like episode 502 and then the name, and then there's one point where it just says Isabel and Tara are like literal family to me, and it's like, oh shit, she's deep into this show.
Yeah. And there was one point also where what was written pain is weakness leaving or something like that, which I don't know, that stuck out to me for some reason when he was walking through the hallways. Like, it was kind of an eerie scene because like throughout the first 2/3 of it, it looks like he's walking through like almost like a prison. Like, there's like no windows, no post. It was just like a very sparse, like brick walls, and it's just kind of cold and clinical. Of course, there's this really vibrant song playing, but he's like walking through the hall. It kind of reminds me of that movie Elephant with Gus Van Sant, and like that the high school shooting. It almost feels like done in that style, you know. And then eventually he like walks through like this windowed hallway full of colors and stuff, and then he goes to this dark room and retrieves a VHS tape. And
The
yeah, there's
pilot
like a lot of
episode, the pilot.
yeah,
It was a rerun, yeah.
yeah. But like, so like the visuals and the acting and everything in this movie is so like bizarre and overdone, and I think that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it on this show, because we've watched a lot of movies that are bad, but then we've also watched a lot of movies that are just kind of like uncanny and odd and kind of just confusing, and you know, like there's just some that fall into like the weird category, and this sort of like, I don't know, there were so many things about this that felt like done on purpose, but I don't know, like I can imagine a lot of fans of bad movies would really like this movie, you know. Maybe I'm wrong, but it just feels like it has that kind of aesthetic, sort of like artificiality to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing was like it's a little higher quality than like bad movies
Yeah.
in terms of just how it is in looks, but the acting is fucking
well,
real
that's
shit.
yeah. I mean, it's not badly made. It's just, but the script is confused. Like the dialogue is very repetitive, and there's just, and also, you know how much I hate narration. And the weird thing about this movie is that as it went along, the narration actually became like more and more prominent and intrusive.
Yeah.
Like there comes a point where he starts literally just speaking to the screen, and I'm watching it and I'm like, what is this, Salt Lake City Punk? Or
Malcolm in the Middle?
Yeah. I mean, it's tricky, but what was that?
I was gonna say, I thought it was like him thinking he's in a show or something.
Yeah, and
That's what I was
that does
thinking.
tie into the ending too, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Does he know? Like, because it is like, yeah.
Well, yeah.
We'll get into it when we get to the ending, but that does kind of tie into the theme of the end, at least. That does he know? Like, does Malcolm in the Middle know he's in a show because he's a super genius?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's the kind of thing he should know, and that's why that show, it kind of leaves you questioning, and it leaves you guessing, and that's kind of why a show like Malcolm in the Middle kind of manages to stand the test of time more, because it gives you something outside of the show to think about too, you know. And I mean, not the movie, like the show. I love Malcolm in the Middle. Don't get me wrong.
It's
like,
It's like one of the greatest sitcoms ever made. I think it's just timeless and like, so good.
Yeah, I'm just starting to kind of realize that a lot of like younger audiences nowadays have really high expectations for things. So I'm always sort of tentative to recommend a show like Malcolm in the Middle, because it does break a few rules, you know.
It's like the pioneer too of the single camera sitcom that kind of exploded with The Office and all those shit. And like it's the blueprint for the single camera sitcoms. Really, it's the one of the first that did it like well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I'd rather. I mean, it's been a long time since I've actually rewatched Malcolm in the Middle, because I did actually at a certain point sit down and watch the whole show.
Yeah, we watched it, I don't know, last winter-ish, fall, winter.
Yeah.
Holds up fucking good.
I believe it. Buffy, I did rewatch not too long ago. And there were things about it that I still really enjoyed, but then there were things about it that didn't quite hold up. Like,
yeah,
it starts off a little bit clunky and slow, I feel like, you know. It definitely picks up as it goes along, but you know, you do have to kind of it is a little bit of a time commitment as far as like,
because it's one of those 22 episode hour-long seasons.
Yeah. And they're just like, tap out, please. We just gotta write something.
Yeah, there's a bunch of fillers, but it's still one of my favorite shows.
Yeah,
I rewatch regularly. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, I would love for this movie to. I mean, I know that this movie is all about its own thing, but imagine like somebody coming up with like the behind the scenes for the Pink Opaque, and it turns out to just be a bunch of people just writing a bunch of bullshit and not knowing what they're doing. I mean, that's that's probably like that would be the equivalent of what would happen in the world of this movie, I guess, um so like he's into the show just like she is, but then there comes a point where things start to get kind of like weird, where I forget exactly. He's at her house, and she's talking about running away, and he's gonna go with her. And she doesn't know where she's going or whatever. But like eventually he gets kind of. There was a moment. There was kind of a sensual sort of moment where she like draws that symbol on his neck that the girls on the show have, and it's like right after they watch this episode that's really emotional, actually, for the Maddie character, where the two main female characters share an intimate moment on a pier, and it's like one of those moments that could be from like like Dawson's Creek or something, and she's sitting there and it hits her in an emotional spot. So, and earlier in the movie she mentions really only being into girls, and she tells him that, and sort of just as a way of cutting any sort of pretense of him possibly getting involved with her. And he's of course like, well, because she asks him like, are you into boys or girls? And he's like, I like TV shows. I know that, I'm into TV shows. So
yeah, and he said he equates it to like, I think that part of me, it feels like somebody like took a shovel and dug it out of my guts, and it's not even there anymore. So like,
yeah.
I don't even, because like, and also throughout the movie, I think he might be like asexual, like doesn't have like any type of feelings towards that. That's what I kind of gathered, because there's that one scene where he walked in on the like further down, where he walked in on his boss getting a blowjob from.
Yeah. Yeah, and his
like,
boss kind of challenges him a little bit.
Like, you want one?
Like,
I could get it. I could get her to give you one, and he doesn't even
Yeah.
look up and doesn't like have no reaction. He's like, "Come on, look me in the eye. Come on, what's wrong
Yeah.
with you?"
Well, and also he was the one who ended up being apologetic to his manager for walking in on him, which
Yeah.
like that confused me too, because it's like, why would you apologize for walking in on somebody having like doing something they're not really supposed to be doing? Like that's not really something to apologize for. And so
That's the thing. That is
yeah.
also a thing too, because he said like he said early on to Maddie before like they left, or something, like he said, "I'm sorry for something."
Yeah.
I forget exactly what. And she says, "Don't apologize."
Yeah,
And then
I forgot about that. Yeah, she got tired of his apologies too. So so yeah, he of course gets pretty anxious about the prospect of running away, which I think makes sense, because I mean, if you're young and you actually feel comfortable,
and he has his mom
really
that
make
he
sense
does
to me.
like, who is sick, so
Oh,
he didn't
yes.
want to really. That's what I
another
think
thing.
most of it was. Like, he doesn't want to dip out on his mom who's dying.
That's true. I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay. You see, again, this is another thing I forgot about. So throughout the course of the movie, yeah, his mom kind of deteriorates. Like at first she's really warm and, involved. And then when he's older, a couple of years later, there's like a shot where they're at the fair, and she, like, you can tell she's had some medical problems, and she's, looking kind of pale, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry."
She's definitely bald because she had
Yeah.
she had like a head wrap on her.
Yeah. And so, like, you can tell she's having a real tough time health wise. And that was the moment where she tries to reach out to him, and
Yep.
and yeah,
He's
okay,
like, "Why don't you talk to me anymore?" And he doesn't even respond. He just spits in his cotton candy, and while
yeah.
I do that, but like, because you
Yeah.
spit in the cotton candy and it melts. It's like,
yeah. I think I probably did that when I was a kid. I've seen people do it. Yeah, he still kind of sort of was more into his cotton candy at that moment, but she was trying to have kind of a heart to heart with him, and so that kind of makes me feel bad for his mom now, because I wouldn't say she was trying to shelter him exactly. She was more trying to sort of get him a little bit more prepared for the inevitable, because I get the sense she probably knew that her time was limited if she was willing to have that conversation with him. So now that kind of explains why he may have been having some challenges later on, because he was probably feeling guilty Okay, all right. So, all right. Basically, he gets cold feet. He reaches out to Johnny Link's mom, who you said was played by who again? From
Uh,
Buffy?
from Buffy, the character's name was Tara, which is one of the
Okay.
characters' name in the Pink Opaque. But yeah, it was a Buffy character. She was a witch that had psychic powers as well,
Yeah.
coincidentally. So-
Yeah. He shows up at her door. It's like, oh, you have to tell my dad that I haven't been here and that I've been else. And so again, it's like you have to. He's trying to get somebody else to communicate to his dad for him.
to
And
ground
so
him. Like, please
yeah,
tell my dad to ground me.
yeah. And so then let's see. Then a bunch of stuff happens at once,
Mhm.
basically. Like so Maddie disappears completely. She just disappears off the face of the earth with no
Yeah.
trace. There's like police tape being wrapped around her house. And then his mom dies
Yeah, it happened like a
of
week.
cancer.
Like he said, a couple weeks later, she disappeared, and that it happened to be the week after my mom died, and also the day she disappeared, Pink Opaque was canceled.
Yeah, that's the third thing that happens. Her the Pink Opaque gets canceled. So yeah, a bunch of this bullshit just kind of falls on him at once. And then the movie decides to jump ahead like how many years later? 2 years later, right? Something like that.
8 years
8 years later, he's still living with his dad, but at this point he's working at the theater. So he's getting his legs, but it's tricky because he has health problems. You can tell that he's having some social challenges. He still doesn't seem to be connecting with his peers. He certainly doesn't seem to be very communicative with his coworkers, although I can sort of understand why, to be honest. I mean, I would be pissed if I walked in on my boss having sex in the workplace. Um, but he's seems to be somewhat lost, I guess you could say, like because more like after that whole thing with Maddie and all that stuff. I mean, the film doesn't really reveal exactly what happens until later, but this is when the movie starts getting kind of dicey though, because he's driving home from work. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's driving home from work, and there's like a power line down or something, and there's pages from the episode guide to the Pink Opaque littered around the road.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then so then he goes to the grocery store and he goes to buy some vegetables. And of course the vegetable aisle is labeled in this really colorful way, but then the vegetables themselves all look either green or unripe or and it's like this. I mean, the grocery store, I mean, they're trying. They're really trying, but so he grabs a stick of celery, he grabs whatever, he puts it in the bag, turns around. Wait, what's her name again?
Maddie.
Yeah, okay. Maddie. So she's kind of standing there, kind of moping, and
She's holding just a giant like piece of meat.
that's it. Yeah, she's. Yeah, what was that about? Like,
I don't know.
Holding a piece of meat.
It's never addressed, and because
Yeah.
he's like, hey, do you remember who I am? And he's like, Maddie, and he goes up to hug her, and she just drops it. There's like not
Oh, yeah.
addressed, like why. She's
Yeah.
just holding a piece of meat, like a giant steak or something.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? And I also forgot to mention okay, so earlier in the movie when he's talking to her on the bleachers, she's talking about how she's only into girls. But before that, she talks about how she wasn't hanging out with her friend there that was with them earlier. When she was playing MASH and talking about Michael Stipe. Her friend accused her of groping her, I think is what she said.
Mm-hmm.
And then she went on to join the cheerleader squad, which, of course, in her mind can only mean one thing. So she's a lesbian. She's a gay person who's more or less been rejected by pretty much everybody, just but through just for being different, for being a little bit more of an outcast than the average person, and not being an extrovert, being introverted. So basically this is a girl who's been rejected by everybody and has a shitty family situation. So at this point in the movie, I'm kind of thinking like she's probably very lost. Like she's probably having a lot of real difficult problems in her life, and of course she disappeared earlier in the movie, so who even knows. And so he sees her, and of course there's this emotional moment where he embraces her, and then they go and meet at a bar on the outskirts of town.
It's literally like the Bronze from Buffy.
Yes,
Because every few episodes they would have like they even said it in early on that there's like a double feature musical scene, and every now and then they would have bands playing and shit on it was like
yeah,
the exact same setup as like the bar in Buffy. So,
yeah. And it definitely, it was great because it was very true to the way a lot of TV shows of that time were. But then that scene also, it kind of reminded me of like a scene from a David Lynch movie a little bit, like Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me or Blue Velvet or something like that, where you have like a mysterious bar scene, where there's a lot of mystery, and then the music itself is really interesting too, so it's kind of firing from all cylinders, so great atmosphere. I mean, that's one thing this movie nails, is the atmosphere.
yeah.
And she talks about getting as far as Arizona.
I mean, she asks him questions at first too.
That's right.
She's like, so like, she was like, I have questions. Like, do you remember the show we watched? And he's like, yeah, of course. It's my Pink Opaque is my favorite show of all time. And then
it's always gonna be.
Yeah, and she was like, so do you ever feel like that you're in that show, that this isn't real and that show is real life? You ever feel like time has been distorted, that things aren't going, chronologically, things are skipping around.
Things
I mean, like that, like.
Yeah, I mean, it turns out there actually is kind of an explanation why. So, and she certainly provides it. So I guess so this is the part of the movie that I have the most problems with. So like pretty much everything after this moment is when it starts to kind of go downhill for me.
Mm-hmm.
I guess all right. So I guess after, all right, so as she's talking to him, she's pretty much kind of probing him about his sort of reactions to the show and all this stuff. And like you mentioned, like her asking whether or not the show feels more real than the real world does. And, that kind of brings up a lot of interesting sort of thoughts and feelings.
And she did actually just say those words when he was still a kid and came over. She like sat on the stairs and she said, sometimes I feel like the show is more real than the real world. So like, it was definitely implanted in her early on too.
Yeah. And I think this is, I think what the movie's trying to explore a little bit is, so as we all know, nostalgia is really popular, but some people don't really have the same kinds of feelings of nostalgia tied to a lot of these things as other people do. Sometimes those feelings are tied up with a lot of pain and confusion. And so I think this movie's trying to sort of probe that a little bit more, are like people who watched these shows for more than just an actual escape, but rather as something to kind of channel themselves into a little bit more. I mean, that's definitely a feeling that I can relate to. I mean, I didn't experience that in my teen years. I kind of got that sort of experience out of the way early on when I was like real, real young, because when I was a kid, it was the show Pete and Pete, because my older brother used to watch it. And when I was a kid, I used to think it was like the coolest show. And then when I was in my teen years, I rewatched it and realized, oh wait, that show is meant to be funny. It's supposed to kind of be making fun of cool people. So I had kind of a different response to it in my teen years than I did when I was a kid. So this movie kind of was like, there were things about that actually did kind of resonate a little bit with me. And so she brings him back to her apartment, or was it her apartment? No, it wasn't her apartment. It was the gym room it was the gym room where, like, at the beginning of the movie when he's underneath the parachute, she brings him back there and she turns on like this constellation light thing, and it's like showing all the constellations and all these names and stuff. And that's when she has this monologue about her experience with the pink opaque, where she like she paid somebody to bury her alive, and then when she got buried alive, she woke up to a world where like things could be resolved more or less, kind of like the way things get resolved on the show. And this is when this is when the movie starts to kind of unearth another layer, which is the idea of things never having any kind of closure. So
Oh yeah. One thing I just want to say, when she was buried alive, she talked about I shit and pissed my pants.
Yeah.
And I drank my own saliva for water.
That was funny. Yeah. I liked her. I liked some of the things she was saying. Like, I liked when she said, you ever feel like you're just skipping through your life, like chapters on a DVD player?
Yeah. Yeah.
So okay, there is a little bit of trauma that the main character in this show correlates with. The main character in this movie correlates with the show, the Pink Opaque, because the show actually ended on a cliffhanger. The last episode never aired. It ended with the main character, with one of the main characters on the show being buried alive, and she gets her heart cut out. She gets forced to drink the whatever juice, the Zuma juice or the Juma juice, whatever the hell juice. You know, it's the world of the show. I'm not asking questions here.
Right.
You know, and then she gets buried alive, and there's like this really creepy moment where you got the villain on the show, which is this moon man who looks like the moon guy from the music video for the Smashing Pumpkins song, the Tonight, you know. And he's also supposed to be kind of, if you ever watched that movie, The Trip to the Moon or whatever, the moon in the sky, it's basically that kind of thing, except without the big hourglass thing sticking out of his eye. And then in this, there's like this creepy moment where he has like this part where he is like interrogating the main character while he's making her drink the juice, and it's got this real creepy, eerie sort of visual. I don't know. This movie's trippy as heck. I would hate to watch this movie on shrooms or something, because it's already too hallucinogenic to even follow, you know. And then he buries her alive, and then there's like this crazy bit where Justice Smith, it's like Videodrome. He like starts putting his head in the TV. And
I'd
then
even say before that, like she was mentioning that, like when she was talking about it, like as her story when she was telling being buried alive, she said when she actually finally climbed out, she felt that she was in, because it was canceled on season 5, but when she climbed out, it was the season 6 premiere that she felt she was in, and that like the whole thing she wanted to recruit what's his name in the Justice Smith, I forget his name, whatever.
I
his
don't remember the
character's
character.
he
what
wanted
was his character's name?
starts with a C, fucking Conrad. Owen. No, I was way
Owen.
off. Owen, I was way wrong.
What was that?
Owen.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, she said like you felt it too. And she wanted to recruit him to finish season 6. And like like there were scenes of him dressed up in the Isabel character, like him in a dress and shit.
Yeah, and she's responding to it and complimenting him and stuff, but he just mostly seems very confused and bewildered. And like there is a moment earlier in the movie after he watches the show where he's walking in the woods, and then it cuts to the main character on the show, and it's almost like it's almost like the Justice Smith character is identifying with the main character on the show. And so there is sort of a theme of him kind of, because earlier in the movie, Maddie describes her as being kind of whiny and kind of a drag, or kind of a, I forget what word she uses, but some sort of, she calls her a drip.
Oh yeah.
She's a total drip, but I like what's her name because she's hot and knows how to get shit done or whatever. I forget what Maddie says, but she describes the two characters as being kind of polar opposites, and the Justice Smith character Owen identifies, I think, with that character a little bit, and I think that's why he got really involved in the show, and I think that's also why he had such an emotional response to the ending, which once there was no resolution to it, he stuck his head in the television, and then Fred Durst of all people had to help him get out. It's like the last person in the world I'd want to have help me pull my head out of a television is Fred Durst.
Right.
But
and he kept trying to go back in the TV and shit, and like
and Justice Owen is like, "This isn't my home." He's shrieking, "This isn't my home." And,
you're not my father.
Yeah. And later on in the movie, Fred Durst looks at him on the couch with kind of a look of disdain. We can all tell what Fred Durst is thinking. Like, I don't approve of you, son. You're not the type of boy I wanted. That's probably what Fred Durst is really thinking at that moment. So anyway, it's kind of tough. You feel bad for the main character. But she proposes the idea of burying themselves alive, so
she wants to bury him alive
in the real world. Yes, that's right. She wants to bury him alive specifically. So because she can't complete season 6 without him, without the other character, her psychic sister, I guess is what you would say, right? Yeah. So she brings him to the back of the football field, which actually the football field in this, it probably wasn't, but it does kind of remind me a little bit of the football field at the end of Dazed and Confused. It also kind of reminds me of the football field in Pete and Pete too. So go figure. But he gets cold feet again. He ends up actually, I couldn't tell what he kind of sort of spears her a little. He kind of tackles her to the ground.
He
like
tackles her and just books it.
That part made me laugh. I don't know if that was the intent, but I thought that was funny. Like, I thought it was funny that he tackled her to the ground. What can I say? Sometimes certain things just strike my funny bone, and that was a moment where I laughed hard. I don't know. So he leaves. Wait, what the hell happened next? She just says, "Oh, I remember."
They leave, and he says he never saw her again, and then
she disappears again, and she doesn't come back. He holds himself up in his room for like a week, something like that.
Yep.
So this is when the movie starts going into Charlie Kaufman territory, because then it starts jumping ahead some more.
Yeah, it's like years. It's years past. His dad died. He got the house. He's like, he's talking to the camera and shit, and he's like, he kept the house. He has a family, and then like at some point he's rewatching the show Pink Opaque, and it's like it's a completely different show. Like it's streaming now, but it's a completely different show. You see, like, it's a bunch of kids now. He's like watching that ice cream episode, and it's now just a bunch of kids, and it's a little happier. He's in a cheesier costume. There's no special effects, and they resolve it by him saying, "Well, why don't you serve soup during the winter instead?" And the ice cream man is like, "Yeah," and it's a lot more cheesier than what he remembered as a kid.
Can I be honest and say that I actually thought that show looked better than the show that they showed before?
Yeah,
like that was actually more interesting to me. Was that I didn't care for what was that, Marco Polo, the twin alien zombie things dancing and doing their weird mime, like ooh, 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 ooh. Like, I hated that shit. That looks so cheesy and foolish. But the ice cream man costume with the kids giving him soup and then the smiley face, you see that's quality TV. That's what I would consider solid cinema, and I'd prefer to watch that. So, but that's just my opinion. Obviously, Owen doesn't agree with me. So
yeah.
But it actually does. Yeah, but in all seriousness, though, that actually does sort of bring up another sort of theme of the movie, which I kind of picked up earlier in the movie, just because they kept on bringing up. They did mention like the fact that, well, okay, he had to hide the fact that he was going to this girl's house from his parents, right? He was kind of engaging in something a little bit forbidden, and at least from his perspective. In reality, it actually wasn't a big deal, but from his perspective, it was something that he shouldn't have been doing. And maybe his parents felt the same way. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. His mom seemed perfectly understanding. His dad seemed a little bit lost. You can only sort of gather. So we're given so little information. It probably doesn't even really matter how his parents felt, you know. But regardless, I think that the influence of like an older peer on a younger person who wants to fit in and wants to have people to relate to and have a social circle, there is something about that that is like that. Like, I feel like this movie is actually trying to speak to a certain truth regarding the degree of influence that somebody can have, you know. Because I can totally picture some older teenager watching a show and being like, "Oh, this is really cool. This is awesome." But it's kind of being more their thing. But then they end up getting some other more impressionable person, whether it's their age or younger or older, who wants to kind of fit into their peer group to get into something like that for reasons that aren't actually real. I mean, maybe the movie was trying to touch on that a little bit. It is very unclear. It just gets cloudier and cloudier as it goes along. So, and at this point in the movie, the cinema that he worked at has closed, which actually speaks volumes about another sort of theme of the movie, which is adapting mediums. How the movie goes from people watching things on television to people watching things on DVD to people watching things on streaming. I mean, that through line is very clear, and you can also see the disillusionment of the theater industry and the theater experience. I mean, there's even it's only one shot, and it's a very brief shot. It's like a blink and you miss it type of shot, but there is a shot where he's walking up the aisles of the theater and the movie behind him just looks like fake CGI bullshit about like robots taking over the world or something. And it just looks like complete garbage. And he just doesn't give a fuck about what he's watching, but presumably the theater's packed. I mean, I think this movie is actually trying to cover a lot of ground, like throughout the course of its runtime. But the way it wraps up, in my view, couldn't be more dissatisfying.
It's 20. It wraps up 20 years later.
Yeah.
Too. Like, does another huge time skip. 20 years later, he's an old man. And he's working at like an arcade type joint.
It's like Fun Zone or it's like some kind of fun zone, and it's clear that his health has deteriorated by this point, whether it be because of his asthma or other things. I mean, his mom died of cancer, so who knows, you know, what kind of health problems he has.
Yeah, his lips are mad chapped.
Yeah. And he's at this kid's birthday party, and they're all kind of celebrating and cheering, and then it gets more and more aggressive, and his boss is like, "Happy birthday to you," which, to be honest, if I were like an 11 or 12-year-old kid at a birthday party and somebody starts singing to me like that, I would just flee. Like that's like an angry singing. And I didn't care for that. I wanted the boss to just fuck right off at that moment, you know? So I don't blame the main character for flipping out at that moment. But yeah, then the movie. So then he has sort of this breakdown. Of course, it's clear that it
was a weird breakdown too, because he's like, it's like this isn't real, kind of. He's like, I'm fucking freaking out. But everybody else in the scene was quiet with their heads down, not even like really reacting to it. So I was like, what the fuck is going on with everyone else? Like, usually you'd assume like people are like, oh, like even the coworkers would maybe try and like stop him and take him out of the room or something. But no, everyone, the coworkers, the parents, the kids were all it was silent. They were just looking down, not
Yeah.
even reacting, and he was just like, I'm freaking out. This isn't
Yeah.
real. None of this is real. What's going on?
Yeah, they were all frozen like wax figures, just like
Yeah.
just frozen in time, you know. And yeah, then he flees into the bathroom, and then you get a very Cronenbergian, well, except not as realistic looking, um, kind of moment where he sort of splits himself open from the chest down, and he opens his body up, and there's a glowing of a TV screen. That I saw the TV glow, you know, the title, and it's like in his body there's like television static. And then he closes his. I mean, you don't see what happens, but he kind of leaves the bathroom and he's like, "Sorry, everybody, it's just my new medication. Sorry about that. Sorry." Nobody gives a fuck, and nobody's paying attention.
No one
He's
even
just saying
really
sorry to
knows what he's
nobody.
talking about. Yeah, he's not
Yeah,
even
yeah,
addressing anyone specific. Yeah, he's just going through the halls saying sorry.
yeah,
Like they said, don't apologize.
pretty much. And then he's just doing nothing but apologizing, just saying sorry to people who don't even know who the fuck he is. You know, some kid playing skee ball or whatever. It's like, I'm playing skee ball. I don't care about what you're doing in the bathroom. You know? And then I think I mean, the movie pretty much ends.
That's where it ends. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Credits start rolling.
Yeah. And I don't know. Like it's a difficult movie because I thought the highlight was kind of the beginning. Like the first 5 minutes were perfect. You know, that opening scene where he's kind of having that remembrance around the fire, and he's kind of thinking about his childhood and kind of discovering new things and trying to figure himself out and stuff. That stuff was really cool. And then the whole concept kind of became more and more obscure. And I don't know. I'm just really frustrated with it. I don't know if I like it, but I would recommend it. That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like, I would recommend it knowing that it'll annoy people, I guess is how I feel. You know? Like, I guess my overall conclusion about this movie is that, like, I appreciate that it's actually talking about some real true things, and that it's, like, touching on some real human emotions. But it's so frustrating, and it's hard to grapple with. And it leaves you feeling kind of pissed off, you know. I mean, I can relate to the main character in certain ways, because I know what it feels like to wish that reality were just not reality. You know, like I know how it feels to watch a show and wish that I lived in the world of the show rather than in reality. You know, like I think that's something that a lot of people in our generation have felt, and so like there is something resonant about that message for sure, you know. So that's something that I really appreciate, and I'd love to see more movies explore these concepts, you know. So maybe this movie is like the right movie to like dip your toes in, as far as watching movies about those ideas. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it still, but I guess I like it. I don't know.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
But after reading some reviews on Letterboxd, there's a lot of trans people who are like, "This is how I felt before I transitioned."
Okay.
So I'm wondering if that's where the director's coming, what they're trying to say. Like, I didn't get that at all, because I'm just thinking about this fucking TV show.
Right,
yeah, same. That's the thing. Like, I'm gay, but I also have Asperger's, so I'm just dysphoric all over the place no matter what I do. I'm just naturally gender nonconforming. So the trans stuff, that's all kind of beyond me. I mean, I don't know. Like, for me, my issues are far more complicated than most people's. So for me, like, I think this movie like, I could see how some trans people would, how it could resonate. Although I feel like it kind of sort of paints a negative light on it. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I had a sort of a defeated, sad feeling from this. Like, I found this movie rather melancholic and downbeat rather than like triumphant or empowering, you know. So I mean, maybe that was the goal. Like, maybe maybe that's like those are the kinds of feelings that a lot of trans people can like relate to, and that would make sense. So I don't know, maybe there's something to that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I wouldn't know ultimately in the grand scheme of things. So I guess I mean I'm divided on what I would give this movie on a scale of like 1 to 5. It's kind of between a 3 and a 4, but I think overall I would give it a 3, only because I think it's a more interesting movie to like think about and talk about than it is to watch. Those are my overall. I guess that's my overall reaction. I had a much more intensive experience to their prior film, the World's Fair movie, which I would highly recommend. I would argue that one is probably more challenging than this one, but I like the way that one is challenging. I don't like the way this one is challenging, I guess is my feeling. So what about you guys?
Yeah, I gave it a 3.5, just because I liked the vibe of everything, but it's still, I don't know how I felt. I still don't know how I feel about it, like the story wise. And then if that is what they're going for, the allegory, it's not for me. So
Yeah, that's the thing. It kind of goes over my head too. So
Yeah, same here. I didn't really pick up on that at all.
yeah.
I would give it I would give it a 3 as well. Just
Yeah.
because I liked I mean, I loved the nostalgia 90s kind of shit, especially because it was a lot of Buffy stuff, and then but and the beginning stuff was interesting and the more character driven aspect.
Yeah.
But once they started going into the more, I don't know, metaphysical or weird shit, I wasn't sure if it was like mental health stuff, like the girl was actually like schizophrenic or something and like
Mm.
acting out, or is this actually sci-fi kind of stuff? I assume it was just mental health at the end of the day, like somebody being just unwell.
Oh
And
yeah.
because that's how it presented itself at the end of the day.
Yeah.
At the very end, with him just saying, "Sorry, it's my new meds. I'm sorry, it's nothing." And like, obviously, he didn't cut himself open and have a TV in him because he was walking
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
So, like, I think they could have probably presented it a little better. And
The
at that end,
ambiguity.
it's just, yeah, it just was like,
Yeah.
what? I don't really exactly know what. And like the Maddie character just disappearing with no resolution at all
Yeah.
after he just tackled her on the fucking
Yeah. Basically
football
all the
field.
characters. Yeah, like the mom disappears, the dad disappears, and the Maddie character, like basically all the characters sort of just vanish except for the main character. Other than like the manager, and that's about it really. So
Yeah.
um also actually I would agree with you about the mental health stuff. My initial reaction to this movie was, oh, is this trying to say something about depression? Because again, the idea of feeling removed and just kind of wishing for the days to be over and just wishing that the real world weren't the real world,
And like what he
and
said, like your insides hollowed out and there's nothing there.
yeah.
Like,
And then also the part about like him rewatching the show that he used to love and then finding it stupid. Like that's something that is definitely like 100% indicative of somebody who is feeling like depressed, state of mind. And so again, I think that there is like an underlying element of truth and honesty to this movie that I think is really admirable. And I think you hint at something, and I think you're touching on what I appreciate about the movie. So, and that's why I'm really frustrated that I didn't get to actually sit down and rewatch it, because it's possible that I would have actually appreciated those aspects of it more upon like a second viewing. So it might be the type of movie that's just meant to be revisited and re-examined. I mean, there are plenty of movies like that, so who knows? So I don't think Civil War is one of them, by the way. I'm just going to say that right now. Not to bring it back to that, but I I think this movie's better than that movie, I guess is
Oh,
the
okay.
way I would put it, you know.
Yeah.
So but maybe it's because this is more my type of movie, you know. So anyway, that's I Saw the TV Glow. I think it's a movie all three of us admire, but feel a little bit confounded by at this point. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, good. So I don't know, maybe that was the goal.
Yeah.
It's a mystery, but I would recommend the We're All Going to the World's Fair. I would recommend that movie. So, I don't know if that's something you're like, would you be interested in checking that one out after watching this one? It's hard to say. So, but
I own it. Haven't watched it yet.
Yeah. Well, if you ever feel like watching a movie about a teenage girl on her video chat doing weird stuff, and I don't mean that in no gross way. I mean that in just a dark, thematic, bizarre, artistic way. I would highly recommend it.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't know if I guess that's the end of the episode. Should we use this opportunity to ponder what we should do in the future? I would love to do another episode at some point. If you guys have anything you guys want to watch that's coming out or came out already that you're curious to watch and want to have a conversation about, feel free to just, I guess, scream out.
Yeah, definitely up for more.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. I know that we still haven't talked about the National Lampoon movies. And I know, yeah. And I know we still haven't talked about Half Past Dead, the Steven Seagal movie, and we haven't talked about Tainted yet, the Trauma movie. So I don't know. Those two, they might be next. We could also do a Tubi roulette as well. I'm always up for that. So
yeah. We got options.
Yeah. But if either of you, ever want to do this again, I'm all for it. So
definitely, I'm down. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And if you guys just want to talk about weird movies like I Saw the TV Glow, I'm all for that too. So
yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that concludes our episode of a couple of flicks. So we did talk about a few different movies. So that's cool. But yeah. But I guess until next time, stay safe. Stay cool. It's very hot out there. And enjoy your night.
Yeah. Have a good one.
See ya.
Mm.